The debt that killed a country. Sri Lanka built a gleaming port on its southern coast. The Hambantota Port cost $1.4 billion, financed almost entirely by Chinese loans. It opened in 2010 with grand promises, a symbol of development, a gateway to prosperity. 7 years later, Sri Lanka couldn't make the payments. China didn't forgive the debt. They took the port, a 99-year lease, plus 15,000 acres of surrounding land. The payment? $1.12 billion, which went straight to paying down other debts. Sri Lanka got temporary relief. China got permanent control. This wasn't a bailout. This was the business model. The old empires conquered with gunboats and armies. The new empire conquers with spreadsheets and loan agreements. No troops, no occupation, just contracts signed in desperation and collateral seized in silence. This same pattern is playing out right now across Africa and Asia. To understand how this works, we need to look at what makes Chinese loans different. The loan nobody else would give. When a developing country needs infrastructure, roads, ports, power plants, they have two main options: Western institutions or China. The Western route means going to the IMF or World Bank. But here's the catch. These loans come with strict conditions: transparency requirements, environmental studies, anti-corruption measures, years of paperwork, painful economic reforms. For a politician facing re-election, this is a nightmare. You're promising voters austerity today. China's offer is simpler. We'll build it. You pay us back. Minimal questions asked. Instead of a decade of political battles, you get a new highway in 18 months. That's not a choice. That's a lifeline. But the fine print reveals three critical differences that turn infrastructure into leverage. First, the secrecy trap. You can't tell your own government or citizens what you agreed to. Second, the collateral trap. If you can't repay, they take the asset. Third, the penalty clause. Miss one payment? Lose the asset. The real cost is in the structure. Countries often don't realize they've signed away sovereignty until it's too late. Trap closes. The debt is due. There's no way out. This isn't theoretical. It happened in Sri Lanka. Trap closes. The debt is due. There's no way out. In 2007, Sri Lanka's government wanted to build Hambantota Port on the southern coast. On paper, the location made sense, near one of the world's busiest shipping lanes. 15% of global container traffic passes within 10 nautical miles. The World Bank reviewed the project. They rejected it. Their analysis showed the port wouldn't make enough money. China saw the same analysis. They knew the port would lose money. They built it anyway, because the port was never about making money. The port was the collateral. Control of Hambantota means leverage over a global shipping choke point and a foothold in the Indian Ocean, challenging India's influence. China structured the loan knowing default was likely. Default wasn't a risk, it was the plan. China loaned $1.4 billion to build the port. Construction was done by Chinese companies using Chinese workers. The port opened with celebration and global attention. It looked like progress. 7 years later, the bills came due. Accumulated losses made repayment impossible. Confidentiality clauses trapped Sri Lanka. In 2017, Sri Lanka leased the port for 99 years. China paid $1.12 billion. China now controls a major global shipping choke point. The port can support military use if China chooses. Sri Lanka no longer decides who uses the port or why. The 99-year lease gives China operational control. And this mechanism isn't unique to Sri Lanka. It's being deployed systematically across the developing world. The question is, how many countries are caught right now? As of 2025, China is the largest bilateral creditor to developing nations. Over 40 countries owe more than 10% of their GDP to China. Several owe more than 25%. Djibouti, Tonga, Maldives, Republic of Congo. That's not development, that's dependency. Take Zambia. Its power utility borrowed heavily from China. When copper prices crashed, Zambia couldn't pay. China demanded control of revenue streams. A share of every power bill now goes to China. That's not a loan, it's a permanent tax. This creates real political power. When countries can't pay, China offers time for a price. Developing countries still desperately need infrastructure. Western alternatives remain slow and conditional. China's lending slowed, but old debts are coming due. Countries now face 3 impossible choices. Accept China's terms. Seek IMF bailouts. or default entirely. Most extend with China because the cost is hidden. Citizens never see the contracts. By the time they realize, the assets are gone. Debt also buys political loyalty. 25 African countries have aligned with China at the UN. When you owe billions, your vote isn't yours. This wasn't an accident. It was expected. This is the trap, but traps can be broken. The solution isn't rejecting all Chinese investment. Infrastructure is real, necessary, and expensive. Developing countries need capital. China offers speed. That speed is seductive, and it's the hook. The solution is demanding better terms, publish loan agreements for public review, require competitive bidding, use multilateral institutions for checks and balances. But desperation kills negotiating power. By the time countries realize this, they're already trapped. For countries already trapped, restructuring is the only path. That requires cooperation and political will. It requires admitting mistakes. It requires creditors to accept losses and transparency that breaks the system itself. This is financial imperialism dressed as development aid. Spreadsheets replaced gunboats, but the result is the same. Countries lose control of assets, policies, and futures. The trap is designed to close before you see it. If you want to understand power in 2025, follow the debt. The country that controls infrastructure controls the country.